Hello, everyone. I'm George from Ireland. Well, I was horrified but unsurprised to hear President Donald John Trump say today that he wants the United States to take long term ownership of Gaza to transform, as he said it, into the Riviera of the Middle East. And the Gazans will be forced out. They'll have to live in any other countries. Why other countries should take them is beyond me. Of course, Donald Trump doesn't want to take refugees into the United States. He doesn't want to take illegal immigrants. He doesn't want to allow legal immigrants, mostly. So deporting a lot of illegal immigrants. All right, he's within his rights. Rather harsh on those who've been there for decades, those who arrived as little children, and so on. But you might say that's his own matter. That's his domestic matter. So he jealously guards the sovereignty of the United States, but doesn't want any for Palestine. So Palestine is recognized as a sovereign state by dozens of other countries, about as many as recognized Israel. So Palestine is a nation by almost any definition. Nationhood is almost indefinable. There is a spirited debate about what constitutes a nation, but Palestine is constitutive of it in almost any sense. Remember, the United States itself started out as unrecognized by every other country. Every nation state always does. So he is proposing armed robbery on a national scale. Um, that's it. So to kick out all the people, wow, dispossession of the Palestinian people without compensation, it is staggering. He is proposing a crime against peace, a crime against international law. You know, even worse than what Putin is doing in Ukraine. Putin is not saying that Ukrainians have to leave; they just have to be Russified and so on. They have to lose their national identity, but they're not actually going to be expelled. All right, an awful lot of them have been killed. Many of them have chosen to flee because of that. A lot of Palestinians have been killed and not even able to flee in most cases. So it's horrendous. So it's just smash and grab. He thinks he just steal it and steal in a literal sense. And then it would what be all Trump towers or golf courses and stuff like that, without the slightest regard for people who live there. Of course, cheered on by Netanyahu and his merry mob, who don't regard the Palestinians as human beings at all. Apparently, Bill Clinton, who was viciously anti-Palestinian, even he said he was aghast at Netanyahu's attitude. This is 30 years ago, that Netanyahu simply regards Palestinians as subhuman, which is why he's happy to slaughter just so many, going far beyond what needs to defeat Hamas. Hamas, they have a few hundred combatants left. They have a few assault rifles, virtually no ammunition. They're not exactly a mortal danger to a nuclear power that is Israel. So now, Trump did not enlighten us on how precisely he proposes that the United States would seize control of Gaza or oblige the people to go. So the Palestinians be driven out of their historic homes. Of course, they lost most of Palestine already. I don't anyone had to have to live at gunpoint. And I recognize many Jews had to flee Araby in the late 1940s, in the 1950s, from Morocco, from Egypt, from Iraq, from Yemen. So these countries had significant Jewish communities for centuries, and obviously they can't go back. And they live in Israel now. Mostly they're Israeli citizens. In some cases, young Israelis are their great grandchildren, right? So there's been a lot of displacement in both directions, and is always unjust. Nobody should be forced to leave his or her home. There ought to be assessment, a restoration of property and citizenship, and so on. Many Israelis would not take the chance. So right of return for Jews, for Muslims, for Christians, for Arabs or non-Arabs, all across the Middle East. That's what I'd like to see. That's justice. Um, so we see that he's taking this ultra Zionist position. I'm not aware that anyone in the United States wants that. So the Palestinians being denied their name, denied their very name, the attempted erasure of Palestinian national identity. Oh, don't call it the West Bank or don't call it Gaza, it's Judea and Samaria. And you see American politicians like Tom Cotton doing that. Likewise, with Trump trying to rewrite geography, saying it's not the Gulf of Mexico, it's the Gulf of America. It's just staggeringly childish, so petulant, egotistical, selfish, so myopic to only try and see it through this view that the places are not called what they're actually called. You're going to change the toponyms somehow it's so self-referential and vainglorious. Anyway, It would be a material breach of the Fourth Geneva Convention, what Trump is proposing to do, with the United States signed and ratified. The United States gratingly asserts its moral superiority over other countries, demand they observe international norms, despite not doing so itself. Remember, the Fourth Geneva Convention expressly forbids the forcible transfer of population for whatever reason. It's a crime against humanity, one that Ben Shapiro was advocating for about 20 years ago. It's just staggering they should get away with this, and yet there are plenty of Americans, Democrats or Republicans, who will nauseatingly assert the supposed supremacy of the United States. It's how morally upstanding it is, and so on. I mean, most sovereign states are rightfully criticized. Republic of Ireland, we've not done very much wrong, partly because it's not very puissant. The United Kingdom has a bit, but wow, it is staggering. It's sickening. But as I say, it's unsurprising. I mean, almost nothing would shock me coming out of Trump's mouth. And it just seems so unhinged. Obviously, there's been a chorus of denunciation from across the world, not just Ishmaelite countries, but also the Occident, many of them NATO nations, still have been stalwart allies of the United States for decades, saying it's unrealistic. I'm not sure it is. I wish it were. I mean, perhaps if Israel paid another Arab country several billion dollars, they would take these over 2 million Palestinians who'd be fleeing from their lives from Gaza. There's almost nothing to stay there for. Something like 80% of the buildings either damaged or destroyed, scarcely functioning vital public services, the economy absolutely wrecked. But there they would be living in tents and refugee camps for years until they can gradually turn that into a town, as it successfully did in places like Lebanon. And the Palestinians have lost about 90% of their land over the past 100 years. So a lot of people of the Palestinian ethnicity live in Jordan, or also Jordanian citizens. So, and this is what some of the really hawkish Zionists want to do, as they see it, finish the job.